Innovation is really at the heart of everything that Nike does. And what we're finding now is that we're having to innovate in an increasingly constrained world. We ask ourselves the question, what will 2030 look like? And apart from things like climate change and biodiversity, three key issues stand out for us, upon which our business really depends. The issue of peak oil and water scarcity are going to stand out as constraints for our business. Population, we might think, is a good thing. The more people there are out there, the more people are going to buy our products. But clearly, the increased population is going to have a huge impact on the amount of resources available. And so we have to pay attention to that. Considered product, there are two approaches that we take. We can reduce the impact of what we already have, and that's really very much about incrementalism, an incremental approach to looking at four things: how we reduce water usage, energy usage, eliminate toxics, and eliminate waste. The other side, and this is really where the true innovation comes in, is how we transform our business model into what we call a closed loop, which would mean that ideally we would produce a shoe, the consumer would use the shoe, we take the shoe back, and we remake it into another shoe. We launched team kits for the World Cup in 2010, and all the teams that Nike is sponsoring, but most importantly here, the Brazilian team, will have these shirts of recycled polyester. And as you can see, each shirt has about 8 recycled bottles in it. So we've kept 13 million bottles out of landfill with this project, and huge amounts of waste. What I find intriguing about this is not just this considered approach to designing, that reduces the environmental impact. These are very high-performing shirts. They have to be for elite teams. So there's no sacrifice of performance, but what we've been able to do is incorporate the sustainability. The green exchange is this next area of innovation, which is around business models, not just products. So green exchange is actually a platform and a collaboration which will enable people to share know-how and to share intellectual property or patents. At the moment, most of us who create products or create technologies hold our patents, and we fiercely protect them. And if other people try to use them, we sue them. That's the classic model. With sustainability, with the imperative of sustainability, it's really important that we start to share technologies and we start to share know-how, because we recognize we can't do this on our own. And crowdsourcing of ideas and sharing is going to get us to a sustainable state much faster than holding things tight to our chest. So the Green Exchange was born. There are a number of companies involved in this, including Best Buy, who Aaron talked about earlier. And the platform itself will enable companies to go in and license their intellectual property and share with academics and academic institutions who will be able to access this intellectual property without any charge and without restriction. And then there'll be licensing and some restrictions for commercial use. So we think that's going to be a game changer in terms of moving forward on this agenda.
Think about innovation and sustainability. There's both tremendous risk and opportunity, and understanding whether we're working on process innovation, product innovation, or business model innovation is really inherent to forming a strategy for approaching innovation. That at the process end of things, risk and opportunity, frankly, is low. At the business model end of things, both risk and opportunity are great. So if your organization is embracing a general innovation strategy, and especially in the context of what we're talking about here, a sustainable innovation strategy, then knowing which one of those you're tackling, how much resource to put against it, how much risk you're willing to embrace is a pretty important part of the game. But on the vertical axis here, you have innovation itself and sustainable innovation in this context. And on the horizontal axis, you have business value. And we're proposing that it's at least possible that those things increase in tandem. But I think what is left off of the slide is that aspect that risk also increases as you push the innovation envelope. So it's incredibly important to get this right. Now, I don't know if it was just coincidence or really thought out, but the name of this session was Sustainability in Product, Process, and Business Model. And our model or diagram here is slightly different, and I don't mean to be too pedantic, but from a risk and opportunity perspective, I think the difference is important. So we map here process, product, and business model, and suggest again that both risk and opportunity increase as you move through process, product, and business model opportunities. They don't always happen in a linear fashion, but if you're thinking about risk and about the degree of change that might happen, that's kind of the layers that emerge. So let's populate the model a little bit so hopefully it makes more sense. Without talking about sustainability first, process innovation is just doing what you do now better, right? It's being more efficient in the process, using less energy, less water, creating less waste. Hopefully that gives you an advantage in the marketplace, lets you go to market having incurred less cost, or it might get you to market faster than your competitors. When you get out to business model, it gets really interesting. This is where we see disruption. This is where industries get remade. So cloud computing, good example again. Instead of software delivered by compact disk, bought and installed on your computer, something you own, the software you need is out there. So is your storage. You tap it as a utility. You pay for it on demand. It's the biggest threat that Microsoft has faced in its existence. They're fighting back quite ably, thank you very much, and holding their position in many ways. But we can see a new era of computing emerging. So what if we put a sustainability layer on top of the examples? I find it easy to think through this if I think in terms of a single industry. And we've been working on this question in the automotive industry with a variety of folks for a while. So at a process level, again, it's easy. If we're trying to spit out cars, we want a factory that, again, takes in less energy, uses less waste, less materials, shortens the product cycle, gets the product in the marketplace faster and better than our competitors can do. At a product level, you start to see the product transform. Hybrids, gas-electric hybrids are a great example out there in their millions today. Plug-in hybrids are starting to emerge and are greatly reshaping the consumer's options around mobility, but it's still fundamentally a car. And the business model is exactly the same in that you or I buy one vehicle for our personal use, we transit it around, and it actually spends 95% of its time parked somewhere doing nothing. It's at that business model level that what gets delivered to us as consumers transforms. It's no longer a car, it's mobility, and it's the ability to move how and when we want. Nike's populating this across every level, but again, if you are in an organization where you're thinking about sustainability and innovation, just think that at a base level, knowing which rung of this ladder you are on, process, product, or business model, really shapes your approach to the investment and the recommendation you're literally going to make to management about what to invest and what to consider in the process. That at the business model end, there's the greatest risk. That's where the disruption happens and markets reshape. It's especially a challenge if you're an incumbent in industry, so it deserves deep, earnest thought, a rigorous research approach, a lot of testing, being sure you know that what's going to be offered is what the consumer is actually going to embrace.